Aloha everyone and welcome to another Tinkers Academy video. I'm your host Kay Elmer and I've got on the line Philip some more von Holzendorf, founder, owner, operator, healer for Leela Quantum Tech. And we're going to be doing part 4 of the how to use LeelaQ Blocs tutorial. And this part 4 is to cover a couple of new blocks that have been offered for sale on the website since we did part 3 I think about a year ago, right Philip? It's been yeah, about a
Yep.
year. So there's been 2 new blocks, and we want to definitely cover those 2 blocks. So everyone who's interested in how the charging times, the copy times for frequencies, and so forth, we can go ahead and give you that information today. So I want to say thanks for joining me, Philip. Let me jump into the disclaimer. This is our typical disclaimer for anyone watching our tutorials that neither Leela Quantum Tech nor the Tinkers Academy recommend or endorse any specific tests, decisions, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in this video. Reliance on any information appearing and discussed in this video is solely at everyone's own risk. Statements made have not been evaluated by the EFSA or FDA or any governmental derivatives thereof. Leela Quantum Tech products and products that Leela Quantum Tech may represent are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, and this includes the the Quantum Upgrade Service. All right. So the new blocks that we were going to talk about today in part 4 is the travel block, and it's not really new. It came out right after we did the tutorials. So we didn't get a chance to include it, but it's going to be covered today. And it's this little guy right here, and just kind of give you a perspective on how big it is. It's actually, about the size of a wine glass. So you can kind of see how little it is. It's the littlest one, and still yet very powerful. And then there's this newest one, which was a limited edition, and maybe, Philip, you can talk a little bit about that, called the Grand Bloc. And to give you an idea how big this one is, this is the largest block available. And you can see the size here in perspective that it is quite large. It's much larger than the Infinity or Quantum block. So we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. I guess we should just jump right in right now. I mean, the biggest question everyone's got is, it was a special offer. I believe it ran like part of January and part of February, and then they're just getting shipped out now. So could you kind of comment, Philip, on when people can expect to start receiving their Grand Blocks?
Yes, absolutely. So that was indeed run for just 14 days, because it was a product that we don't want to have on a regular basis because it's pretty difficult to deal with because it's so big. The plates are so big. It's very difficult to manufacture it. It's very difficult to actually safely move it, ship it, pack it, and all of that, because there's so much potential for scratches and all of that. So, but it was a request from the community to have a larger block to put, even a big salad bowl inside. And, some people wanted to even put the whole head with the shoulders in and all of that. So that was the reason. And we're actually today starting to ship out these Grand Blocks. So everything has been on schedule, like communicated at the time. And I think it will all ship here within the next 7 to 10 days. And then all of the already ordered Grand Blocks will have been shipped out. And then, it takes whatever it takes, how long the carrier takes it to you, and depends probably in which country you live. If you order from Europe, and since we ship from the US, it'll obviously take a little longer. So, yeah.
Okay, so today is Friday, March 10, 2023, so everyone should be receiving their Grand Blocks in a week or two, pretty much, right? Or during the
Yes, I
month
mean, I
that
was
you should be
told
getting
by
them, right?
next Friday they will have been shipped. So
Okay,
that's what I've been told.
right. Okay, great. So that means this is a perfectly timed tutorial for those of you getting the Grand Block and for those of you having the Travel Block and you've had questions. Now, in terms of the Travel Block, I know that it was out of stock, so is it going to be back in stock shortly? Because I know
I
people have
think
been
it may
asking in the
be in stock.
program.
Yeah, it may be in stock right now with
Okay.
just a few of these, and then it's probably out of stock again. And then I would say around March 18th, 19th, or 20th, it should be back in stock, and then it also will be a little bit stronger and more powerful than before. It was already powerful before, but we decided to, yeah, further upgrade it, the little travel block. So then charging foods on the go can go even quicker.
All right, great. So now what this gives Leela Quantum Tech is there's 4 blocks now. The original 2 were the Quantum and the Infinity block. So again, you've got this little travel block now, and you've got the Grand block. And the first thing I want to comment on, Philip, is, and just to share with everybody that's got blocks, is that the use cases for the new blocks are the same as the existing blocks. And what I mean by use cases is like, what are they for? How do you use them? So Philip, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, but bottom line is that even though there's, they're new blocks, but they still do what the older blocks will do as well. So any one of the 4 has the ability to, number 1, broadcast quantum energy and or frequencies if you place a frequency source inside the block, meaning it broadcasts it out from the center of the block outwards into a field. We'll cover the size of the fields here in the next slide. It also, you can use any one of these 4 blocks to charge objects, charge people, pets, plants, and you can even charge places by putting a picture inside these blocks, any one of the 4. You can use them, any one of the 4, to copy frequencies, but with the caveat that the stronger blocks have a limitation as to certain kinds of frequencies. We'll cover that in a couple of slides. And also that the new blocks, like the existing blocks, will send quantum energy or frequencies long distance through the concept of remote healing / quantum healing. So is that correct? Is there anything else that the new blocks could do that the other blocks don't? I guess is the question, Philip. Or this, they're all basic. I'm trying to say they're all basically have the same abilities. That's what I'm trying to say, but I just wanted to quantify that with you.
Yeah, well, they work differently and have different abilities. The use cases are the same, and just for the listeners out there, in number 2, where it says charging objects, obviously water and groceries would be an important point, but that's covered under objects. But for anyone new out there, obviously that is a use case also for all of these blocks.
Okay, I'm going to add that onto the slide. And then, yeah, definitely, by the way, on my blog, I'll condense all of this, and it's all going to be available as a slide, like a quick reference. So, okay, so definitely charging objects, food and water, people, pets. Okay, great. Okay, so let's get into the actual specifics or the specifications for these blocks. Now, we've got the original Quantum Infinity block. That's what we covered in part 1 through 3 of the tutorial. And then, so you've added the travel block and the grand block now. So I do know on the travel block, the size of it is 4 inches by 4 inches by 6 inches tall. So now is the field, okay, I believe it's 100 meters, right? Is that correct?
Yes, it's 100 to 150 meters.
Oh, okay. Now, when you actually produce the newer one,
no, to 150 meters. I think that's actually what we measured, 150. So you may as well just put 150 there. Okay. And we measured about 70 to 75 meters EMF mitigation.
Okay. Okay, so quantify for folks that don't know what he just said is the studies have come back that the EMF effect of a block is within the 40% closest to the center, which is the block itself, right? So let's say, just for semantics, if the field was 100 meters, right, the first 40% or the first 40 meters of the field of the ball around the block is where you're going to get that EMF mitigation effect. Anything outside of that, it's not as pronounced, right? So yes. You always want to basically place the block closest to what you want to protect from EMF, which would be, where you guys live, like sleep and so forth. So it's 150 meters. So now on the Grand block, how big is the field for the Grand block?
I do not know that.
Oh, okay. Haven't measured it.
But I will let you know once we know, once we've measured it. So my guess at this point is it's probably 2 kilometers. That's my guess.
Okay.
Feel free to quote me in there right now and put in 2 kilometers, and I will send you a clear number here in the next 7 days or so.
Okay. So yeah, when I post the quick reference guide and we put it in the chat group, we'll have this updated. So right now it's a guesstimate of 2 kilometers. That's pretty wild because the infinity block is 1. So that's huge. which also implies, right, that the 40% EMF field is way bigger as well. Okay, so then when people receive the travel block and like any of the other blocks, when they assemble them, they should wait 2 to 3 hours before they start using it to charge, copy, and so forth. Is that the same with the travel block and as well as the grand block? Is it 2 to 3 hours after you assemble it is when it's ready and it's kind of like established its field? Is that the same time frame?
Yes, and it may only take 1 hour, so we are always a little bit more on the conservative side when we give out these guidelines. So usually it's an hour, but it can take up to 2, 3 hours depending on where it's actually set up. And the energy is noticeable right away, to be honest. It won't take more than 5 minutes until you have a strong field there. But then it changes. Like if you were to calibrate it after 10 minutes, after 30 minutes, after 60 minutes, you will see an increase on the Hawkins scale. And it's moving quite clearly. And then at some point, it's leveling out, if that makes sense.
All right. Yeah. So, and then I know that the little brochure that comes with the block says 24, but that's kind of like the original back, like when when you started, right? You figured it took 24, but now we've got a more refined number. So I don't know if you'll have a chance to upgrade or update the little brochure, but so people do get a little confused. So if you get a brochure that says 24 hours, just kind of know that 2 to 3 is the sweet spot, and you're ready to go at 2 to 3 hours. Okay.
Yeah, and so the 24 hours is rather also meant for people that have 2 Infinity blocks, so the Infinity block package, and when they do upgrades, and we still recommend that today. Like, don't do your upgrade in the first 24 hours. Wait at least 24 hours to do an upgrade.
Okay. Oh, that's really good to know. Okay, so all right, so 24 hours if you're going to be upgrading Infinity blocks, but everybody else, when you set up your block, 2 to 3 hours and it's ready to go. Now, if I were to, let's say I want to charge something big and I take the rods off and then I put the plates up where they're facing each other again, how long, and it's at 1 minute before the field reestablish itself? When
Yeah, it's
separate the plates, how long does it take for it to feel?
1 to 3 minutes. 1 to 3 minutes.
Is that for all of them? Would say?
I would say it's for all of them.
I'm going to update.
Usually after 1 minute. So I mean, you can, yeah. I mean, if there's maybe a 5% difference, then after a minute, then that's not worth bothering about. So yeah.
Okay, and I also want to stress, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when you separate a block and you take the rods off and you separate the plates, you need to keep the plates facing each other, right? I mean, otherwise the field just doesn't form.
Yes.
So
correct. If you lay them next to each other on the floor,
or you lay them on top
flat,
of each other,
there's not going to be any field at all.
So you have to position the separated plates as if the rods were there, so that they're in alignment with each other. Okay, everybody. So even like for myself, I have one of my Infinity blocks disassembled at all times, and I use it in my kitchen. That way I could, I could separate the plates. Really super easy if I want to like charge a bag of potatoes, and then so forth. So, but when I store them on the counter, they're always facing each other, so that the field is always sitting there, right? So keep in mind that you want to keep them lined up when they're separated. The other thing too now is when you do separate the plates, there's this idea of what's the farthest distance you could have the plates separated from each other, aligned as if the rods were on, in order to charge really big things like cars, boats, kitchen appliances, beds, whatever you want to charge. That's huge. So we did kind of mention, I think in the Infinity block, it was like 5 meters roughly, 25 feet or 20, what was that, 5 times 3 is 15 feet. So the travel block was about 3 meters. What would you say would be the grand block? If I separated the plates of the grand block, how far apart can you separate them so that you still have a field?
That's a good question. I would say safely, probably 7 meters easily.
Okay. So it's definitely a lot bigger. For folks of you, I've actually had people in the chat group that have separated their plates and literally charged their car a little bit at a time, because but they've worked up a way to charge their vehicle and so forth. Charge your bicycle for those of you guys who ride bikes. Charge your fishing rod. Big things like that. So yeah, there you go. So it's 7 meters. But then here's the length of distance between plates when you want to charge bigger things. Now for consciousness level, this is something that we get asked about a lot. And so we've got the quantum and the infinity block. Quantum's at 571. That's 733 for infinity. So now you mentioned that the travel block, that the original first, let's say, batch that everybody bought between when it got launched to most recently now, the consciousness level of the travel block was 700, very close to the infinity. Do you have an idea of what the new one will be?
I'm pretty certain it will be over 1,000.
Okay.
And
So
how much, I'll let you know once we've actually done it.
okay, all right. So it's definitely going to be a lot stronger. And then so now the Grand Block was advertised at the consciousness level of 1800, correct?
Yes, and I think it's at 2,000.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
we said
2000.
at over 1,800, but it's looking more like 2,000.
Okay, and I have a question about that. It's just my personal question. I was thinking about, the little pyramid. And all of you are familiar with it. If not, I'll put a link below on the little handout that Leela provides when people have questions about the Hawkins scale. But when you look at if you picture in your mind, Philip, that little pyramid, right? And at the very top of it it's like that, Hawkins thought, it's like 30 years ago or 40 years ago when he wrote the book, that, when you reach the top of that pyramid, from 0 to 1,000, that was the most you could reach at that time.
Hmm.
And then, of course, things have changed. So I'm just wondering, is the top of the pyramid now because of and there's a lot of reasons for it, I won't get too deep into it, but, is the top of the pyramid now 2,000, right? Is that the most that humans can attain to at this day and age? Or have we surpassed the top of the pyramid and we've gone on to actually evolve into a whole different type of pyramid where Hawkins is on the bottom and then there's something even above it? So you see what I'm saying? Is the top of the
Hmm.
pyramid 2,000, or are we literally going above that pyramid into a whole nother realm that is yet to be defined? What would be your thoughts on that?
Yep. So, I mean, the Hawkins scale doesn't just apply to humans, it's for anything, right? So it basically measures the vibrational level of a location, of an object, of a human, and so on and so on. So it really is not just for humans that's important. So it does not at all say anything about humans, where humans can be, because it includes all these other um, objects and locations as well. No, 2000 is not the top. I don't know where the top is, to be honest. It's definitely not 2000 because we're already higher than 2000 with what we're using. And but it keeps changing. So I don't think it can be a static scale anymore, really. I think it's still helpful as a scale and from the logic and everything, and it's just an amazing reference. But we've surpassed that in a way, and that happened mainly because the energies on Earth and off Earth completely shifted. Roman
Right.
described that already 10 years ago as the Earth has now become a conscious creator. Okay, so that's his way of saying that. What it also means is that Earth basically became completely free um, of any other energies and forces and restrictions, and can create and frequencies are coming out or have been coming out in the last 10 years out of the Earth that are absolutely incredible. And the environment is now there for all beings on Earth to also reach that and to become conscious creators, if you will, and
Okay.
to be free of these lower levels of vibration. And that's quite frankly where humanity is at the moment. And I don't think anyone can really say, what levels will we see here in a year or two or in three. At this point, we see that each year we are able to have advancements and to provide even higher levels on the Hawkins scale. I must say though that also came with developments like the harmony feature and the buffer, because you could not have a regular infinity block vibrating at the level 2000 and not sweat like heck, because of it, because it's just it's the same consciousness level, but it's much more forceful. It's very hard to understand, but it would make you sweat literally.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually heard your interviews about people at the biohacking conference as they one individual wearing I think an Aura ring or a Fitbit or something. Every time they got closer to the block on your side of the hall, right, in the biohacking conference, they literally watched their HRV go up, and definitely it was biologically affecting them because of the level of just a level of energy that was coming out of the block. So that was really fascinating to hear that story. So I guess I don't want to get too deep into it. I mean, this would make a great other video, but bottom line though is I was so curious as to, like, you're creating these blocks now and products that are above 1,000. And so I was wondering, like, how does that relate to the existing one? So you're saying is that Hawkins kind of predicted like 40 years ago that, you reach 1,000, you're into that whole self-realization section right here, which is really is what the blocks actually do, right? It's all about self-realization. It takes you from, basically victim abuser consciousness into self-empowerment. And then when you get into these quantum products, you start getting into self-realization. And then Hawkins thought you could get up to a full consciousness at 1,000. But what you're saying right now, Philip, and I guess without getting too deep into it, but there's this whole idea of surpassing 1,000 and not just becoming fully conscious, but becoming a conscious creator, which is a whole nother term. And I think that, eventually we could probably talk a lot more about this in the future, but I just find it so fascinating. So it is completely possible to go above 1,000, and you're actually surpassing full consciousness into a whole new realm of self-realization. And I'll just use your phrasing there on conscious creator. So yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I personally, my story itself, as I went from I went through this bottom all the way up using these tools, and so I know exactly what that means to an individual. So yeah, very, very cool. So right now, then the Grand Bloc is probably your highest product. So I do have the question
Yes.
out there in the field where we've gotten a question. It's like, if I were to charge an object, let's say, a piece of jewelry, and I charge it in an infinity block, does it pick up the 733? So does the item itself then have embedded within it a 733, level of consciousness? Is that how the
No.
concept of charging? Okay, could you explain that? Because people were saying, oh, if I put a 2,000, if I put something in the Grand Bloc, does that something now have a 2,000 level of consciousness? Or is it just the block has it, and then so does the item itself pick up that? So could you kind of explain that?
Yeah, so that never happens, that an object you put into a block then vibrates as high as the block itself. That's just because of the nature of the block, because it's a multidimensional quantum energy space,
Okay.
and it's really a very high consciousness field. And that does not happen. That's just a regular object that doesn't even have a multidimensional space, then suddenly has the same consciousness level. But what happens is, the higher the vibration or the Hawkins scale level of a block, the higher will also be the Hawkins level of the object you put in. So there's a very clear, quite linear development also. If I put a capsule in a quantum block, it vibrates at X. Then if I put it in the infinity block, it gradually vibrates higher and can be calibrated on the Hawkins scale is higher. Then if I put it in the 7G, it vibrates even higher. If I put it in the Grand Bloc, it vibrates even higher, but it never matches what the block is in. And that it's just that never happens.
Okay. All right. No, thanks for that clarification. So the other question here is, I kind of added a new section here for the attributes, which is, you mentioned that the Travel and Grand Bloc, because they're much stronger than the first two blocks, is that they have this thing called a special buffer and harmony feature. So I put no for quantum infinity, but and I put yes that these two new blocks have this feature. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And we are thinking about putting that also into the Infinity blocks. I don't think we will ever put it in the Quantum block because for that it's frankly not necessary at all. And the Quantum block, as we all know, has very specific applications also for pharmaceutical neutralization and
Right.
quantum frequency medicine and so on. But for the Infinity block, hopefully at some point we'll be able to also integrated, but that's a larger development also because of the way it works with the Infinity block upgrade. But yeah, we're thinking about it. And the special harmony feature and buffer mechanism do two things mainly. One is it's even more harmonious with the human cells, so that even at higher levels you can tolerate them way easier and be exposed to them without your nervous system getting too overwhelmed, nor with too strong detox effects up to a certain point, right? You can also do too much, obviously, there. But let's say the level 800 on the Hawkins scale, if that was the regular Infinity block, and someone is new to this, probably after 5 minutes of having the hands in there, they would start sweating. And if they put it in a travel block with 800, then it would take way, way longer until they sweat, if that
Okay.
makes sense. And it also has the benefit if you have people that you invite in your home, for example, that are not used to these types of energies with an infinity block, they are exposed to um, they are exposed to these higher levels and it's not buffered, so they'll be okay, right? Because it's a positive energy, but it may be challenging for some. And with the travel block and the grand block, it basically buffers it down to what that person can tolerate. And again, that also is um, it has also its limitations, but these limitations are far, far wider than you would see it in an infinity block, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. So, yeah, so definitely if you're brand new to quantum energy, you're probably going to want to lean towards something that has that buffer in it. Otherwise, start off with a much lower, object like a card or a capsule and kind of just build up to it, because there's been a lot of reports lately, right, about the detox effect from having these extremely strong products around. So, it's something to keep in mind that there is a detox effect because you physically are going to have a reaction to this energy. It's all positive, but bottom line though is if you got a lot of like accumulated stuff inside of you and it all starts to get harmonized, it causes a detox effect. Okay, but yeah, thanks for explaining that. I think that's really helpful to try to understand what that feature is. And so yeah, right here we've got the travel and the brand new blocks do have that feature, and it definitely helps people that are new to quantum energy. So now the next piece here is the idea of charging people, pets, and photos, and I guess people, pets, and that kind of like right in here. If people, pets, and food and water is kind of the same thing. Would that be correct? I'll just kind of add something here because I
Yep,
want to kind of
no,
get in.
that's
So
correct.
people, pets, food, and water. Okay, so people know how this works. So we did, in the last tutorial, right, part 1 through 3, we kind of defined how long it takes to charge or what the
Well,
recommended guidance for
oh,
charge time.
sorry, Kay.
Yeah, yeah.
So no, I mean, food and water should be a separate line, and
Okay.
not together with people and pets, because that really is not the same. Because you could be in there for 2 hours probably already now, right? But you don't really want to put your water in there for 2 hours.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Okay. Okay. So we got people and pets, food and water, photos. So let's just start with for food and water. Okay. Let me just fill this out then. So right here we've got the Q block, 5 minutes for if the person or the pet has never experienced quantum energy before in a Q block. If you're
Yes.
new to it, 5 minutes. If you're experienced, do it 20 minutes at a time. iBlock was, new, brand new to it, 2 to 3 minutes. If you're experienced with it, you could, 5 minutes at a time is a really good amount to give you a good charge. Of course, you can always be in there longer. I've been around these tools for so long that I do, like, I'll watch a whole TV show, and just have my hand in my IB. And I get a really, really positive benefit from that. So for the travel block, I'll just put this in here. What do you recommend if someone's new to the travel block? What's the first time you'd be, put your hand in there, put your pet in there between the plates or something like that?
Easily double the amount.
For if you're new?
Yep, easily double the amount. Yeah, it's because of this harmony feature.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're experienced, you could go 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, then for travel block?
No problem.
Sure. And then travel block, is it the same as, the Grand Block, would it be the same as the travel?
Well, with the Grand Block, I would. It's a good question. I think I would go down to the Infinity Block recommendations, just
Okay.
because it's just so much stronger, and
Right.
there's still like a bunch of tests that we want to run. I'd rather be on the cautious side. And then, people are listening, obviously, feel in, if you do this for 3-4 minutes and you feel you want to do another 4 minutes,
Yeah.
and it feels great, go ahead, do it. There's
Okay.
no one keeping you from doing that.
Yeah. Well, I just know, based on all the years I've spent in our group, I just know that the first reaction everybody has when they get their Grand Block, they're going to stick their head in it. So if you stick your head in it and you've never had your head in a block before, follow the guidelines. All right, guys. Don't do what I did once, where I put together, or I separated my eye block plates, and I fell asleep for 5 hours with my head between the plates, which might explain how I'm the way I am. So, so don't do 5 hours. But yeah, follow the guidelines, everybody, when you get your Grand Blocks. I know you're going to put your head in there. I just know it. Okay, so so now for charging food and water for the Q block, what is that going to be? Is that, do you remember off the top? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the 5 minutes is actually fine. So whatever was there for the new people kind of indeed matches that a little bit. So 3 to 5 minutes, that's what I would say. So the Motor Institute tested 3 minutes for the Quantum block. And that was perfect.
Okay.
Right. So we know that after 3 minutes, it should be absolutely fine, but feel free to leave it in there for as long as 5 minutes. And you can also do longer, right? So that's one of those things. Like when we initially checked all of that, we checked, okay, what's the energetic level of the substance, and what's then also good for people. We did not look at people with food allergies. Okay. So we looked at just normal individuals that can tolerate these substances. And then, when was basically enough life force energy in these products in order to take them out again. That's what we've always recommended. Now, over time, we've heard from the community, how people were able to basically get rid of food allergies when they at least temporarily, when they charged foods in the blocks. That's been now somewhat verified in pilot studies, and we're still working on it, so don't try it at home. But what has been found is that the levels actually of charging would be longer. So if you want to have these effects to reduce the stress response of sugar, for example, and there we see for the travel block and infinity block, at least 4 minutes of charging. And I think that's important to say. For the grand block, 3 minutes may be already enough. It's just something we haven't tested that for that specific application yet. So I would do maybe 3 minutes grand block, and yeah, that should be great.
Okay.
And then again, that is for food allergies, right?
Okay. Okay. So then that's the food and water. And then for the travel block and the grand block, as it relates to putting photos of people, pets, places, what would be your recommendation? Before, the other ones were, there's a difference between new to it versus experienced with it, quantum energy. no maximum on objects, meaning I guess that would apply to places as well, that there's no maximum time you have to worry about for putting a photo in of an object or like of a place. And then the max for um, people, pets, and places, I think was 10 minutes. I guess that's what I forgot what the PPP meant. I'm sorry. So what would you recommend for, using photos for travel and Grand?
PPP is probably pets, people, plants.
Yeah.
That's kind
Yeah,
of my
that's what I'm
guess
thinking
right now.
too. It's been a while since
And
we did that through. Okay, so
and then
yeah.
yeah, I think it's for the travel block. Now we need to be a little bit careful because we're increasing the levels, but for the levels so far, I think you can use the times that we're done with the quantum block. I
Oh,
think that's
for
safe to
travel,
do.
travel
Hmm.
should equal quantum.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So if you do photos, you want to follow the same with the travel block. You want to follow the same guide for quantum block. Now, if I use the grand block, would I follow the same as the infinity block?
Yeah, that's what I would do. That would be my recommendation at first, and then see how it is for you, and then you can go from there.
Okay. All right. Great. Now for plants, um, what would you recommend for charging plants?
Um, well, I think I would copy the Infinity Block recommendations for the other ones, like you've just intuitively done. Yeah, and
Okay.
I'd leave it at that.
Okay. And remember, and so with plants now, if they're full grown, it's the 10 seconds, maximum 1 minute to charge a plant. Any idea for charging seeds? Like that, because it's spring, right? Everyone's starting to plant their stuff. Is seeds something different than if I just charged a plant?
So
Any
by the way, I would do 15 seconds, not 10 seconds. Um,
for the stronger blocks, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, also for the Infinity Block, I would do 15 seconds. I don't know
Okay.
why it's at 10, but 10 is probably already enough, but I would still just intuitively say 15.
Okay.
And with seeds, I would keep it at the um, full growth, the same as the full growth,
Okay. All
if
right.
that makes sense.
Okay.
And because seeds are very sensitive, so I think you can overcharge the seeds, and it's not necessarily. It's so quick.
Okay. All right. So I'll make a note here on this thing when we're done. Okay. So seeds follow the Q block recommendations. Now for metal, clothing, and crystals, etc., stones in your garden, jewelry, all that, even anything, pots, pans, utensils, all that. You've got iBlock, 15 to 60 seconds will charge that item, maximum 3 minutes. Is that similar to travel and grand?
Yeah. Well, the grand block is less, I would say. The first is good, that's fine, but the maximum, I would say, um, yeah, probably 2 minutes.
Okay, so for the grand, it's 15 to 60 seconds to charge an object, maximum 2 minutes before it's fully charged. Travel, is that the same as
Yeah, I would
infinity?
just not go over charging metals for more than 2 minutes in a grand block.
Okay, all right, good. Now for electronics has always been a really interesting topic because that's something, and I think electronics and like clothing, right, like shoes and things like that. I do know that from past experience that something that's super soft, like clothing, shoes, also electronics, that they kind of need to be recharged every now and then, right? So I guess the idea here is on Infinity Block, if you had electronics, I think it's the same as clothing, right? Would that be the same? Can I just put electronics and maybe clothing should be more like electronics in terms of
Mm,
the time frames, or
y-
clothing can fall in
y-
this category?
well, yeah, I mean, you could put clothing actually down as long as it's not metal clothing.
Okay. Okay. All right. So
And
I'm going to say,
crystals I would leave with the metal just because, again, crystals, we don't want to overcharge the crystals.
okay. All right. I
It's
just
just
want to
not
make sure.
fun for the crystal.
Yeah. I kind of, I always feel really intuitively it's not a good idea because crystals are magical things. And, it's like homeopathy or anything. It's like just, it has its own thing going on. I try not to mess with it. Okay.
They
So
love
then,
to be charged. Like, I mean,
oh,
charging
yeah. Yeah.
crystals is one of the best things you can do for the crystal. But again,
Uh-huh.
then there's really a limit to it, and more is not
Right.
necessarily better. It really works so quickly. Even with
Right.
Lemurian crystals that are completely dormant, they wake up within a minute. You can leave them in for 2 minutes or so, no problem. But then that's fine, right? Then they don't need to. If you light a candle and it's lit, you don't have to light it again, right? That's kind of the thing.
Okay. All right. No, that's great. Yeah, we had a quick question. Is cleanse, how to cleanse a crystal after it's been used for a while or in the hands of someone with, you know, energy that's not positive. You don't want to cleanse it. Normally, it's like the old days was you were told to, like soak it in seawater overnight or put out in the sun for a day. So, is charging somewhat the same thing in terms of cleansing crystals? If I wanted to cleanse a crystal, could I just put it in a block and that would do the same
Yes.
thing,
Yeah,
leaving it
yeah,
out in
yeah,
the sun?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great.
It's
That was
it's
a
the
question.
fastest way
Oh yeah, way
possible.
faster.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now
And
again,
by the way, here,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, the Grand Bloc regarding electronics. So I would definitely cut that time in half here. The 5 to 10 minutes. I would put that to maybe 2 to 5 minutes.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
recharge every 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, I think that is the same.
Okay, so that's kind of the thing for everybody. I mean, highly recommended. If you have a cell phone or Wi-Fi router or any of that kind of stuff, put it in your block. Depending on which block you have, here are the time frames for them, and then definitely you want to remember to recharge them every 3 to 6 months because they do kind of like that's the only thing that we know of where the energy kind of starts to fade. So just want to make sure. So the travel block would be the same as Infinity, right? When it comes to electronics and clothing, 30 seconds, 5 to
Yes.
10 max. Okay,
Yeah.
recharge every three. Okay, great. So there's that. The next one here is using these blocks, the new blocks for copying frequencies. And this was part of the original tutorial. Really important to realize that the stronger blocks you do not want to use to copy pharmaceuticals and homeopathy. And we explained that in the prior tutorial. I don't want to go into it too much why, but that's just the guidance. So for travel and Grand Bloc, what would you recommend for using if I wanted to use these two blocks for copying a frequency of plants and herbs, essential oils and supplements? Would it still be the same as the eye block, or would it be less?
Yes. No, I would do the same thing at the iBlog, and I would never go under 10 seconds.
Same for the Grand Bloc.
Yes.
Okay, great. And then would you still, and I'm assuming, right, that the recommendation to do not use for pharmaceuticals and homeopathy stands for the travel and Grand?
Correct.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. Okay, yeah, because that's a big question we have too when healers join the community, homeopathy folks, and I'm always telling them, it's like you don't want to use these stronger blocks with them, right? Bottom line is homeopathy and pharmaceuticals are dialed into a specific thing, and if you charge them, it changes that. So it's really hard to try to. You don't want to use a stronger block, and if you want to copy them, use the Q block. But remember that what you take out of that block is now different than what you put in, right?
Yep.
But you can definitely copy them and charge them. Okay. Now I know we're sensitive on time. You've only got about 10 minutes max. I just don't want to know if we could cover the other subjects here. I just want to make sure we're
Yeah, we can go another 15 minutes.
okay. Great. Okay, thank you so much. I do have a couple of other things that have popped up in the Telegram chat group that I want to kind of cover. And this is something that I had happen, which was the difference between using a photo in a block versus using the quantum upgrade, for the use subscription, right? And the quick story on this was the other day, and Philip corrected me, and I want to make sure that everybody understands because I actually learned something that day. Somebody came in onto the quantum upgrade chat group and their mother was suffering from a problem. And so I offered, and I kind of do this all the time. I just go, hey, give me a picture, and I'll throw her in the block. So I put her in my infinity block with the heal frequency, but I forgot to ask her, oh, by the way, do you already have this person signed up for you, right? And so then Philip, and then I also made this other comment was like, oh yeah, that's kind of the same thing. By doing this, which is putting the photo in the block with the heal, would be the sign. I thought it was somewhat of the same thing. I completely forgot about the special harmony buffer feature, and so then Philip corrected me, and then basically once we found out that the mother actually had a use subscription, then I immediately then was take her out of the infinity block, because you don't want to overwhelm her, kind of thing. So, but Philip, can you kind of explain to people, and because I learned a lot that day, which was there's a huge difference between putting a photo in a block versus signing that same person up for the U. What's that difference, right? Right. That's the first question. And then the second question, let's get into, using two methods simultaneously, right? And why that's not a good idea for people that are kind of like weakened, right? But the first question though is, Philip, can you describe like what is the difference between using my infinity block with a photo versus signing someone up for Quantum Upgrade U?
Yeah. So the Quantum Upgrade U is the most comprehensive way of soaking someone in energy, in a quantum energy field, basically. And it can be leveled up and down on the Hawkins scale, so you can use different levels. You can infuse boosters in between, right? So that is something that is absolutely impossible to do with the block. With the block, you have one level, and that is it. It will always stay at that level. At the same time, there's indeed the harmony feature, which is very advanced, frankly, with the quantum upgrade system, because that's not a block. It's a whole system. It's just very, very advanced in how it works, and it can support someone on an energetic and physical level way more than just a single product. That's just the reality. However, if someone doesn't have the use subscription, then the block still works with providing benefits, right? Amazing benefits. I mean, it neutralizes EMF for that person, right? It optimizes the blood when you have a picture, and all these things are still true. The field for you is just adds additional layers. It's more comprehensive, and then you have the flexibility to set it at whatever levels at whatever time, including boosters and turning it off or down at night and stuff like that. Those are the differences.
Okay, and then thank you. Then the other issue though was not to do them both at the same time, and to defer to the use subscription as opposed to doing both. Right, so it sounds like when someone's in a weakened state, the quantum upgrade for you would probably be the better option, because then you can dial it up, dial it down, you could boost, so you can really make sure that the person doesn't get that, especially that harmony feature, that they don't get overwhelmed because they are in a weakened state. You don't want to kick off a detox reaction to someone who's just had a heart attack, kind of thing, right? So I totally get that. So then in terms of like, don't use a block for those kinds of things if you could use the U, or if they already have the U. And then the other issue too is don't use them together. Is that kind of was the point, right? Was your recommendation to me was like, yeah, you don't want to do the eye block for this lady. Just let her use just let her have the subscription, and that would probably help for not overwhelming her. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, the thing is, because with the eye block, it doesn't have this harmony feature, and then it just may be too much for that lady.
Right, that person.
However, if you had, let's say you had 4 eye blocks, and they're all exactly the same level, it wouldn't make a difference if you have a picture in one of the blocks or in all of those blocks. There's no energetic difference. But if you have the picture in one eye block, and then you put a picture in a stronger eye block, yes, then obviously that has an effect, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that does. That's actually one of the questions. So thanks for the clarification on that. And I think the key here, the key takeaway for me was to realize that when someone, if you're trying to help someone, you don't want to kick off a detox effect. You don't want to send them too much energy. So really keep that in mind with what block you use, how long you put the photo in, if they're already subscribed, think about those kinds of things, because the ultimate goal is to help that person, right? And not do anything that would make it worse. So definitely good to know. And then what you just said, Philip, is actually one of the questions. I just kind of picked and pulled some questions out of the chat group that I wanted to throw into this tutorial, because these questions come up more than once. But it's the idea of using more than one block for remote healing helpful? And I guess your answer, bottom line, was, well, because a lot of people have two infinity blocks, right? And if they haven't upgraded them and they're both the same, then what you're saying is, hey, you know what? If you put the same picture in two blocks that have the same energy, it's not incremental. It doesn't make a difference, right? Because they're both the exact same level of energy. So it's not two times that. It's still one times, right? In terms of what the person
Yes,
receives.
at least for a person, or for another living organism. For intentions, it seems to make a difference. So that's not a bad thing. So if I have 2 or 3 blocks and I have an intention, at least it seems to us that putting it in all 3 blocks would have a greater effect.
Okay. All right. So that's actually one of the questions here is about intention. So, okay. So if you have more than one block and you put the same intention in every one of your blocks, you actually get an incremental lift. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, which I
Okay.
can't really define. Like we didn't
Right.
properly test that and see, okay, so what is now the actual increase? So it's hard to tell if it's times 3. If you have 3 of the same devices,
Sure.
um, it may be. I don't know.
Okay. No, no, but it
But
makes sense
what
that
people
it's
will,
incremental. So intentions, you
yeah,
can get an incremental lift with multiple blocks, but but it doesn't work if you have for remote healing if they're all the same. Okay, so that's good to know, everybody. But number 5, though, the question again around intentions is there's questions that we've had recently where people are asking, how do I place an intention into a piece of jewelry or into a capsule using a block? So the question was just, do I write down the intention, focus, center myself, and then emotionally, and psychically, right, put that intention into the paper, put the paper in a block with the jewelry or the capsule, and would that intention then copy as if it was like any other source of a frequency? Is that the process for that? How do you?
yes, that's exactly how it works.
Okay.
Definitely write it down on a piece of paper, and the more you can feel what you're writing down and envision that, the better that is. And then you can indeed that piece of paper then carries the frequency of that intention, and you can just
Okay.
put that inside your capsule as an example. Or if people have blocks, then really copy it into aluminum foil. That's the better way to do it, even. And then you can just take a piece of the aluminum foil, wrap it around one of those spheres, and put it in the capsule. And then the aluminum foil in there, you have also that specific frequency of that intention in there. And then you can remove it at any time.
Okay, so then the time frames for copying intentions would they be the same as plants, herbs, supplements, things like that? So telling people, okay, if you want a copy of intention, follow these time frames depending on what block you
Yes.
use. All right,
Uh-huh.
there you go, everybody. That's how you
Correct.
copy.
So if you deal with aluminum foil, you can also do longer, right? So it's
Okay,
it's totally fine. Like if you feel you want it a little longer, that's fine. Aluminum foil is really not such a super dense, heavy object.
okay, all right, great. I'm just gonna the rest of the questions here. There's obviously people are asking, are you going to offer the grand blocks again? Because it was like a one-time sale. They're being shipped out this week. But what about people that are like that missed the sale and would like to get one? Will they be offered again?
Yes, because we had so many people reach out that apparently missed the sale or had come in later and really wanted one. So we will do that again. I can't say at what point, but it may already be in April, and it will only be a smaller quantity. But we will do that again, and then we will see if maybe we can have that uh, once a year or twice a year or something like that.
Okay. I'm going to ask too, is that going to be the same for the super capsule?
So the super capsule in the form we've had it will never be available again. And that's what we also said last time. So we've had it twice, and but people still keep asking for another super capsule. So we will have another super capsule, but it will have a different frequency. And I have to actually look because we did a poll in the group and
Yeah,
asked people which frequency they wanted to see. And honestly, I don't remember what came out of that poll, so I have to go look.
yeah. And
It
don't
may have
feel
been
bad.
gratitude or
I don't remember
resurrection or
either.
something like that.
Okay, I
Yeah.
don't remember either. Okay, so yeah, so they're going to be up for sale again. And by the way, guys, if you have a Grand Bloc, is this safe to say, Philip, that if you have a Grand Bloc, you could make your own super capsule because of the
Uh,
level of energy, or you can make something very close to it.
yeah,
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 no, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
yeah. I've made okay,
It's very close to it then. Yeah.
right. Okay. Now, the other question that's been coming up lately is, when charging something, how long does the charge last? And so I always know that if you charge something that's metal, it's going to last past our lifetime. It's pretty much permanent. The charge as
Yes.
well as the frequency you put into it, if you do that. But what about like so? But about but that I kind of made it simple. Like if I charge something that's hard versus something that's soft versus a person or a being, and then things in photo. We kind of talked a little bit about that before and how long it takes to charge something. But then the question is how long does it last? So for hard stuff, would you say it's going to last past our lifetime? I mean, it's kind of semi-permanent, right? If it's something
Yeah,
that's
so
hard.
exactly. Yeah, for
Okay.
all metals, pretty much that way. If and then the question is, or the difference is between the quantum energy and a frequency. If I put a frequency into any object, it'll stay in there until we purposely remove it, which doesn't just happen. So it wouldn't never really leave an object. However, that's very different. Obviously, with a living organism, that's completely different. It never stays in there permanently. And water, for example, and water like substances or other substances like fruits that have water in there, so frequencies there would not, and in crystals also, frequencies would not stay in there forever and basically just dissipate at some point,
Okay.
relatively soon, actually.
Okay. So it's safe to say that for hard stuff, it's going to last semi-permanent. But if it's something soft, people, pets, clothing, shoes, and even things let's just stick with those two right here. If I charge something like a shoe, we just talked about that a few minutes ago, or if I charge myself, then then it's not going to be permanent, and that you might want to recharge that every now and then. Is that correct?
No, for the shoe, it will be permanent.
Okay, for shoes, it's permanent. Okay,
Yes,
so what about like
anything except water or very
okay,
or yeah, something like a fruit.
okay, so now I'm going to put the notes. Now, people, pets, water, food. If I charge it, the charge kind of fades away, right? Because these are living organisms and they're constantly regenerating. So, if I were a person and and I want to charge, let's say, water or myself, how often would how long would it last, and when should I recharge? Is the question.
Recharge which object now?
A person, like I charge my dog. I put him in the
Yep.
block. Should I do that once a week to keep the energy level up?
Well, so one thing people need to understand is if you have a block at home, the dog will always be in the field of that block and always have already a baseline benefit of that,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah.
And then because the field is much, much stronger inside, then it indeed makes a difference if you put a picture inside or put the dog inside the block. So, and that really depends on, the dog's needs and what you feel. There's really no golden rule. Once with pictures, if you don't have uh, quantum upgrade for a pet, then definitely once a week is a great idea to do that. Anytime the dog doesn't feel good. I had the situation with our dog here lately. She rarely ever gets sick with anything, and then that day she felt bad and had uh, stomach ache apparently and started to eat grass and all that. And I was watching that for an hour or so, and then I was like, all right, um, I'll have to give her a real boost of energy. So that would be a time where you want to place the picture in there again.
Okay.
And yeah, maybe if you go to the vet, for example, if you go to the vet, which dogs never like, right? Or
Yeah.
to the groom or something like that,
Yeah.
just put them in the field because that'll just be better for them that way.
Okay. All right. So for how long something lasts, um, people, pets, water, like up to a week, but it's always a good idea to recharge those kinds of things. And then for things in photos, if I were to, let's say, put my picture of my car in a photo, a picture of a car in a block, or let's say, the most recent everyone's talking about is the river, right? I put the picture of that in the block. Um, and it's sending quantum energy to it, but how long does that energy last? If I, like to the car, to a river, house, stuff like that. It's is it taken away once you take the photo out, or does it like kind of linger for a little while?
Yeah, well, it actually um, degrades over a period of maybe 2 hours.
Okay.
That's about what we're seeing. In some cases, maybe 3 hours. And then you have some lasting benefits, frankly, like with a car. If you put a car in, then the stuff, the energy, the negative frequencies that are coming into the car during production, and there's various types. Once you've charged that for like 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, but usually 30 minutes is enough. That's gone. It's also not coming back.
Oh,
So,
okay.
that's I told someone else the other day, if you have a scale from 0 to 10, 10 is the optimal energetic state of the car, and 0 is kind of like the worst, like, right after production. And we were talking about electric cars actually. And if you then charge it over distance, then while you're doing that, you're at a 10 pretty much. And if you then stop charging it, you're going to back to a 1 or maybe a 2,
Okay.
but you're not going to go back to 0
Okay. Okay. That's actually a good way to
ever.
put it. Okay. All right. So it's also, so I guess the idea here is that it's really helpful to, actually, charge these items and these things, but then for people, pets, water, things in photos, you might want to charge it more than once, or, kind of regularly charge to keep that energy level up. I guess that's a safe way to put it. All right. So that's good to
Yes.
know. Now, something you said, somebody asked a question I thought was wild, which was, can I take my travel block, put it in the Grand Block, and would it upgrade my travel block? And you mentioned that it would. So can you kind of explain, can you upgrade other blocks by putting them in the Grand Block? Could you kind of explain how that would work and what would you end up with?
We don't know what you would end up with,
Okay. Yeah, that's a
other
fair.
than
I
a
mean, it'd be like all the
stronger block. It's hard to tell, but they're definitely a stronger block. Of course, if you do that, don't ever put a block in there that's still assembled, because that's not going to work. It would
ah,
have to be
okay.
deassembled. So just take it apart and then put it in. And if you want to do that, don't do it with a quantum block,
Yeah.
unless you want to stop using a quantum block for the applications of frequency medicine and neutralizing pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have an infinity block package, that's also kind of a difficult thing, because you're getting out of the row of the usual upgrades. But if you want to do that, then everyone is free and welcome to. It's just then we cannot provide any guidance anymore,
Okay.
or levels, because that's something we just, yeah, can't do on
Okay.
an individual basis.
Okay. So if you just took the plates, if you took the rods off, put the plates in it, no matter which, first of all, you shouldn't do that to your quantum block. But if you have an infinity or travel, you take the rods off, put the plates in the Grand Block, you're going to upgrade it, but we don't know to what generation it's going to end up being, but it will definitely upgrade it. And then at the same time, if I were to take my infinity block plates and put it in the Grand Block, would those infinity block plates pick up that harmonizing feature? Or would it just grow? It would just
They
grow.
should. They
It should.
should. They
So there's
should.
nice.
Yes. And but with an infinity block, you want to be very, very careful. You know, if you want to charge that in the grand block, I would probably not go over 30 minutes because it probably will be absolutely overwhelmingly strong.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So there's, so proceed with caution. It works, but if you did that, you're sort of on your own as to where you fall in the scale of things, and no one will know what you end up with, and that will affect all of the different guidance that we create, because all of this kind of comes from testing. So just keep that in mind. It is possible if you want a stronger block, but again, we don't know what you're going to end up with and how that'll affect copy times and charging times. Okay. The last question here then was another question that we seem to get now when we're talking about the Grand Bloc being so much stronger in conscious levels. Is the question is how many generations of upgrades for an infinity block would equal a Grand Bloc? Like if I because I start off with 733 and I keep upgrading it one at a time, per your video. Would it ever reach 2000? Like I get up to like generation 20 or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
I
possible.
mean, we know that the basic infinity block is at roughly 733. The fourth generation at 942, and if I'm not mistaken, the seventh generation was at 1050 more or less, or 1150. I can't remember, one of the two. Maybe we had written that down somewhere. And now you can basically extrapolate from there more or less and see more or less in which range you'll be at at the 12th upgrade, 13th upgrade, and so on. But please keep in mind, those higher levels you're going into are going to be way more difficult to take in as the Grand Bloc. It's going to be a big difference actually in that regard, because it'll feel more rough.
Yeah, because right, because the infinity block doesn't have that special buffer. So so my recommendation, honestly on infinity block upgrades, what's your purpose for upgrading? I mean, obviously you want to keep pace with your own ascension and vibration, and you want to keep increasing your infinity block strength, but only do so at the pace by which you yourself are ascending in vibration, right, Philip? Because if you upgrade faster than you are able to keep up with your block, then automatically you will disconnect from your block. Is that correct? In terms of just warning people not to upgrade too fast.
Well said.
Yeah, you'll end up disconnecting from it, and it'll take a long time to reconnect with it from an entrainment standpoint. So just go again. The recommendation for infinity block upgrades, which also would apply to if you put anything in the Grand Bloc, is take your time, because your body takes time. It's all nature, and it needs time to adjust. And while everyone's always gung ho and they want to try the next best thing, more energy is not always better, right?
Correct.
If you're not ready for it. So there you go. But that's the end of the questions. I know you're at the top of the hour and you got to run. So I just want to say, hey, thank you so much for your time this morning. These tutorials are so helpful for everyone that, has all these tons of questions, and I try to do my best plucking them out and to address all of the things that I know people are interested in. So yeah, thanks, Philip. I really appreciate the clarification that you provide in these tutorials.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time and to making these amazing tutorials, and your series about some of these effects are that's so amazing. So really, we're very, very grateful. And the whole community is, I think I can speak to the whole community, or for the whole community, about that.
Hey, thanks. I look at myself as part of being on this cutting edge of a new awakening, for our species, right? Because of all of these, it's not just, Leela coming out with all of these incredible devices and all this, incredible, it's happening across the board. I'm watching an entire community of biohackers and spiritualists and healers, and and it's like we're all awakening, and it's in multiple different ways, and Leela is one of the front runners, and I really enjoy being like this little scribe that tries to take this incredible work that you're doing and document it so that people can understand it within the context that it really is presented. And I find that fascinating, and I really enjoy adding to the work and being the scribe, you know. But anyway, so thank you very much, Philip, for your time this morning. And thank you out there for watching this video. I hope this was helpful and you learned something. If you ever have any questions at all, you know, we're all on Telegram. So and you can find more information on the Leela Quantum Tech website. By the way, all the links below to everything I mentioned will be in the video description. So you've got the Leela Quantum Tech website. You got the Quantum Upgrade website, tons of information on both of those sites about what those do. Of course, there's the Tinkers Academy. I devoted an entire section of my blog to Quantum Upgrade. You'll also find a list of all of the different tutorials on my blog. And then again, if you want to just ask a question about any one of these services, anything going on with the Tinkers Academy, each one of these three have their own Telegram chat groups. So you can jump in there for a topic-specific question and dialogue and discussion about anything you might need help with or want some understanding for. So feel free to reach out. Links below to join the different Telegram groups or visit the websites. And again, just really thank you so much for spending some time with Philip and I. And I hope that this was helpful to you. Any parting words, Philip?
Well, thanks to everyone out there being part of this wonderful, amazing community. Thank you for your help in discovering new ways of using the tech and spreading the word and just being part of this great vibe. And as Kay put it, we all are, part of this awakening process. We really all are. Each one of the members, whatever you're doing, and certainly outside the group too. There's lots of people and groups and companies that are helping there, and I like to see ourselves as midwives, pretty much in this whole awakening process. And let's keep doing our part. And the good thing is, if we start with ourselves and then we put it out, I think that's the way to go. And now, for everyone listening to this already today, we may see you tomorrow in this powerful webinar where we will do really a joint work, which will be amazing and fascinating and energetically touching for everyone, I'm pretty sure. And have a great weekend.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's webinar. All right. So everybody, thank you very much. And aloha. We'll catch you later. All right. Thank you very much.
Awesome.